Right.
Hello and good evening. A warm welcome to you. Welcome back to the WOR League. My name is Frostbeth, and I am not joined, unfortunately, once again by Epic, as he is still dealing with a pretty nasty virus from what I've heard. So this time for PC Tier 3, I am together with another quite familiar name throughout WOR. It is Max, aka Steve. How are you?
I'm very good, Frost Breath. Very nice to be back, and yeah, hopefully we should be in for an interesting race here this evening.
It definitely should be, yeah. We've been talking through this tier before we went live to you guys. And yeah, it's been quite the interesting season so far. You can see the driver standings on the screen as we speak. The biggest story, of course, is that Deir Demircioglu is leading the standings by quite the margin right now. 30 points ahead from second place after having 3 podiums in a row, of which 2 are actually a win. Last week in Imola, he won, and the week before that in Saudi Arabia. Another victory to his list as well. Then the third place in Bahrain adds a total point tally of 65. He's doing quite well there. The fight, though, for second place is quite close. We have Luca Wolstow, Wilson Hall, and Amos Larita all within 2 points of one another. And Wilson Hall and Amos Larita actually being pretty much level on points. So they are in a fierce battle for that position. Other stories we have to mention, of course, the Williams story of this season. They have had the worst luck so far. Elliott is having 3 DNFs in a row so far, which is not his usual way of playing this game, I'd say. And unfortunately, he's not even present tonight, so that means another non-points race for him to add to the tally this season. Balin Telecki's almost the same story for him. 1 DNF, 1 point, no, non-points finish actually, and 1 race where he didn't compete, which was last week. Now, speaking of non-competers, don't be discouraged by this one, but 6 full-time drivers will not be present tonight in the name of Ryan Grob, Elliott, Dimitri Minik, Alessandro Finn, Yumao Petaya, Gabriel Quintino. All 6 of them are absent and they have been replaced. I'm hoping I'm saying this correct because I've seen some switches left, right, and center. For Mercedes, instead of Gabriel Quintino, we've got Gregory Pritsibil. I hope I pronounced that correctly. Then in McLaren, in place of Ryan Grob, next to Tamás Kokony, we've got Jane Turpkov. Another name I hope I'm pronouncing correctly. Then next to Ivan Santamaria, instead of Yumaya Petayo as the Finnish man, we have Polkis as the Finnish man in the second Alfa Romeo. Then in Aston Martin, next to Quint Dupuy, we should have Roland Alfredson. In Haas, we have Deir Demircioglu alongside Riley Mackay. I believe he's actually in the lobby already, yes. And then for Williams, it should have been Jeremy Gallagher, and according to the lobby, it still is Jeremy Gallagher. So I'm going to try and check who else is going to join in the second Williams, and I don't see anybody just there yet. Balint Elicki is apparently still missing. So yeah, that is quite interesting. Even the host himself is asking who is in the second Williams, so it's a little unclear. Other than that, this is Azerbaijan, and Max, I'd like to know from you, first and foremost, should I call you Max or Steve? Which one would you like?
Call me Max.
Right, that's fair enough.
Yeah.
So Max, Azerbaijan, that should be an interesting track.
Yeah, it certainly should. It's such a different challenge to any of the tracks we've had this season. Yes, we've had the street circuit of Saudi Arabia, but that's the fastest street circuit on the calendar. This is going to be a completely different challenge, so much slower. And I just feel like there's more room for error around here. Of course, you have that tight and twisty castle section of 8, 9, and 10. And you then have some of the faster corners. Of course, that the longest pit straight on the F1 calendar down that main straight from that S section. So it's going to be interesting to see. Of course, that main straight nearly 2 kilometers long. That's going to be your main opportunity for overtaking. But then once you do that, if you haven't got the DRS down into turn number 3, you're going to be on the back foot once more. So it's going to be all about the overtaking strategy. When are you going to get your moves done? And also, it's going to be on your battery game. You need to have a good amount of battery for that main straight. And also, as I say, heading down into turn 3, you really need to keep your battery in good check around here. And also, it's going to be down to strategy as well. Even though we have these long straights, it is very, very difficult to overtake around a circuit like this. Walls are so close and so narrow to you that any mistake with making either an overtake or just going for a late lunge is going to really cost you if you just mistime it by the slightest of milliseconds. So overtaking going to be incredibly difficult. So strategy is going to be super, super important. And of course, high chance of safety cars around the circuit like this. So maybe expect one or two as we progress through this race.
Definitely. The lobby is readying up as we speak. On the subject of batteries, by the way, I have this feeling that Tier 3, from what I've seen so far, has quite mastered the skill of saving batteries, especially of those guys in the front who have been playing the patience game more than once this season. As for incidents, last week, if you remember, we saw this horrifying crash between Stefano Romazio and Jumayo Pataya, if I remember correctly. And as far as I have seen from the FIA investigation, that has been due to some nasty lag caused by one of the two drivers. So that was a very unfortunate yet miraculous accident, because the driver was put into the wall big time. Stefano survived and only had his front wing removed from the car. And that caused the one and only safety car during that race. Let's see if Azerbaijan is going to be an entirely different beast, as we are going to be looking at the pit wall right here, the pit boxes I should say. Let's enable all the fancy data for you so you can see what's going on exactly. Looks like the skies are pretty clear, aren't they, Max?
Yeah, it's a little bit overcast here this evening, but yeah, going to be pretty much, I would say, rain-free. Of course, Baku on this game does have a threat of rain, quite surprisingly, actually, because we've not actually seen any rain in the real-life rendition. So the game, of course, having its odd choice of the weather effects, but we do have drivers now coming out on the circuit. Jeremy Gallanier going to be the first driver going around this circuit on his outlap for Williams. Only 19 drivers, of course, haven't got the second Williams driver in, so I don't think we're going to get one unless it is going to be a late lobby joiner. But it's going to be Jeremy to start us off in this session. Of course, as you can see already, how tight and technical this circuit is. Of course, that first sector, all 90-degree left and right-handed, so it'll be extremely difficult to navigate those first four corners. But then you enter that tight and twisty middle sector where the slightest of error, even more of a challenge than that first sector, the slightest of error, you're going to be seeing yourself put straight into one of the walls around here. And that castle section, you need to hit it with pinpoint accuracy, because if not, you're going to be out of this Grand Prix.
Yeah, imagine being one of those reserve drivers joining in for the first time in Tier 3. Your first track just so happens to be Azerbaijan. Well, quite a few drivers here tonight can say that, because we've got plenty of new faces, and we're definitely going to keep an eye on those guys, seeing on how they will be doing. Jane Turpkov, for example, will be the first new name in this tier to come across the line, just behind Jeremy Gallanier. I believe Roland Alfredson is out as well, just behind Jane. There he is in the Aston Martin. There's quite a train of cars behind him at the moment going through the castle section. But first and foremost, let's see Jeremy Gallanier as he prepares his lap. Actually, the lap should get started right here, because this is the point where you go full throttle. But interestingly, he's not using the battery yet. He's going to save that for a little bit later down the line, or maybe just going to do 2 warm-up laps in a row. No, there he goes. Battery online, DRS online at any moment right now. 20 corners to negotiate in this track, although technically that last corner isn't really a corner at all. It's the one he just went through before the DRS went all open. So there he goes into turn 1, the first of many 90-degree corners turning left. Let's see how he'll be going through that. That looks nice and easy. Of course, the banker lap shouldn't be one that you'll be pushing too hard. Getting quite close to the wall there, though. Let's climb on board with Jeremy Gallanier. Last season we saw him taking pole in Monaco, so he might be a street circuit master overall. Let's see if he can keep up that name as he goes through Azerbaijan. We see one of the cars that's, I believe I was an AlphaTauri, going out of the way, nearly locking their brakes as well there. At the end of the first sector, it's a 35.114. Then a very tricky bit through here. Those are turns 5 and 6. Got it all right. No errors then this part of the track, where the curbs, I believe, moved a bit more to the inside. Oh, drifting through the corner pretty much there. Very enthusiastic driving so far from Jeremy Gallanier through the castle. Nice and easy does it. Pretty much driving through it like the walls don't even exist. Going too wide here, and that's the lap over, because those white lines at the side actually will invalidate your lap if you go over it. So, switching to Jane Turpkov, let's see how they will do.
Yeah, for Jeremy there, that was just a bit too over the limit and just pushing that little bit too much. But of course, only being a banker doesn't hurt him too much. But now Jane Tripkov now heading into the tricky left-hander. So easy to put it in the wall, and Jane does actually hit the wall slightly there as he now exits into the final braking zone of turn 17, getting the car stopped quite nicely as you now head into this S section. You've got to be super tricky through here. Lots of understeer on the exit, but nicely done there. All using all the circuit he possibly can and keeping it all the way up to that left-hand wall. So now keep the tightest line possible in the middle of the road for now, but it'll then narrow up into just to the side of the pit lane entry and pit lane wall, and it's Jane up onto provisional pole of 39.062. Maybe expect that to be beaten. We've got an Aston Martin of Roland up into the line. He's gone a second slower, so a bit of a scruffy lap for him there. Wilson Hall is going to be coming up to the line. What can he set? He goes up into second place, a 1:39.324 for the AlphaTauri man. But for Jane Tripkov, it seemed to be a very decent opening lap here. Not even Dehar, who's gone slowest of all, can beat him. Of course, Dehar, your man at the top of the standings in the championship right now. But at the moment, slowest time so far. So a bit of a scruffy lap for your championship leader.
Zach Miles, I believe, is about to cross the line, and there he is at 39.5. And I was trying to find the other Haas driver, that's Riley Mackay. Instead of Dmitry Minik, goes 5th faster by 39.9. So far, the differences are quite vast. I've never seen the differences in Tier 3 being this big. Normally, they are about half a second or less between 1st and like 15th position. But right now, the difference is almost 1.2 seconds between the man on provisional pole and Deja Demechoglu, our championship leader, currently sitting dead last. So I'm certain, I mean, there's almost no other way of him having made a mistake somewhere. You can see him right here. We see Quentin Dupuis retiring in the pit box. He did so last week as well. I'm certain he doesn't have 2 qualifying bans in a row, so maybe he's going to try and do the same challenge as Danny Coe. Let's see who else is still on our way for a hot lap. That's Luca Wallstow we're following here. We saw his teammate Wilson Hall going across the line. 3rd fastest at the moment. Kiana Liotos come awfully close to the provisional pole of Jane Tripkov. Only about 200ths of a second away from that position, but on the front row nonetheless, so well done to him. Luca Wallstow, though, what can he do? Can he beat his teammate? Both of them are fighting for the title, especially for 2nd place. And they've done some brilliant teamwork last week in Imola as well. Let's see where Luca Wallstow is going to be. Anywhere near his teammate? No, it's quite far away, both in terms of time and position. P7 for Luca as it stands, and that only means 4 people remain for a hot lap. And interestingly, Danny Coe is on his way as well. However, he's already invalidated his lap coming out of turn 2. So I'm not sure if he's actually trying or if he's just testing his setup. We'll find out later down the line. There's still plenty of time remaining as we wait for the drivers to try another attempt.
I would assume, knowing how he's invalidated his lap there, that Danny Coe is going to be just testing out his setup. I don't know, don't quote me on that, but it's very tricky to invalidate
I'm almost sure.
a lap
I've known him long enough.
Yeah, I mean, it's very tricky to invalidate a lap that early on. He might have got a listen next coming out of the final actual proper corner of this circuit of turn 17, so he might have gone a little bit too wide on the exit there and got a listen next. But for Danny Coe, I mean, as you said, Frost, before we started stream, he tried doing last to first so far this season, so he was probably going to follow the same trend. He's got into the wall there through turn 16, I think that is, as you now head down the hill. Of course, Jeremy Galanaya into the pit lane and has retired the car. Actually, no, it seems he's gone
he's crashed,
straight
hasn't he?
on.
I'm trying to find a point of view.
Oh, his car's despawned.
Yeah, he's gone already. That is interesting. Did he do
How is
that
he
coming out of the
there?
pit box? That is fascinating.
Has he had the glitch where when you get control back of your car, the wheel's already at a 90-degree angle and it just turns you into the wall?
That is
I have no
entirely
idea what's
possible.
happened there.
Yeah, I'm from the looks of the minimap, he was still on the pit lane exit, I believe. So yeah, you might be right about that glitch, or him just not taking control in time of his car. That's his qualifying effectively over already. Meaning he'll be starting 18th at best, depending on what Quentin Dupuis and Danny Coe will be doing. Well, Quentin Dupuis is not going to go anywhere, and I think Danny Coe is going to stay happily inside his pit box as well for the rest of this session. We're watching Polkis replacing Jumaya Pataya, one Finn replacing another in the Alfa Romeo team here tonight. He's gone 13th fastest, second to last by the 40.1, actually, not a 14. That will be amazing around this track. 40.1. And look at this, everybody except 2 drivers currently out for their next attempt on their outlap. It's quite crowded out there, and Polkis is the next to try and attempt round the track of Azerbaijan. Tricky so far, only 2 drivers have come very close together. We're watching Keanu Liatou here in turn 3. He's gone too far, and he's went off the track there as he tries to rejoin just behind one of the Ferraris. That might have been Stefano Ramazio, yes it was. So yeah, they're struggling a little bit at the moment, and I wonder what that's going to bring on their second attempts.
Yeah, we'll have to wait and see what happens. But for Keanu going down the escape road through turn 3 and going a bit wide, that isn't really going to do him and his tyres a world of good. But I think it's Pukis to get us underway in the Alfa Romeo on the second runs of the session through turn 1. A big slide for Pukis as we now head down into turn 2. But I feel like that momentum has really already gone before he got this lap started. Down at turn 1, a big slide. Going to lose him some valuable time in this session. But as we now head down into turn 3, it's going to be braking at the 100-meter board, get the car down to 4th gear, hit that first apex, run it all the way out wide to that right-hand wall to get straight back across to the left for turn 4. Off camber, very easy to understeer. He's got a big slide there as well, bringing us a bit more rear locking for the Alfa Romeo. He's down by just under 1/10 of a second in that first sector. So really scrappy so far for Pulkis as we now head into turn number 7. Down to 3rd gear, cut that inside corner as best as you possibly can without invalidating. A bit of understeer as well, so not the best rotation from this Alfa Romeo so far as we head through this lap. Now through the castle section, got beyond the limit, but he runs wide like we saw Jeremy Galanier do. And for Pulkis, his lap has been invalidated, so he'll stay 13th. And now our attention turns to, I think, the Aston Martin of Roland Alfredson as he now heads into that final sector.
Yeah, it looks like the Polkis Alfa Romeo was a handful to control, wasn't it? As Roland Alfredson goes 5 milliseconds faster. His car, too, appears to be a little bit twitchy coming out of the corners. Looks like a few of these drivers have picked a really aggressive setup in terms of trying to get to the power as early as possible, and their car just not cooperating whatsoever. So let's see if Roland can find some more time than 5 milliseconds in the final sector, although I'm certain he's going to head in right here. Yes, he's very unsatisfied with his lap. We see one of the Alpha Tauris there, I think, starting their hot lap. That's not Wilson Hall. That was actually Luca Wolstow having just started their hot laps. The Alpines are coming across the line as we speak. What is Drex doing so far? Only 15th fastest. Let's switch to Tomasz Kokeny, actually. We haven't seen driving just yet through the middle sector, almost 2/10 slower. Not improving as of yet. Let's see if he's going to head back into the pit lane. No, he's going to try and go as fast as he can on the main straight. Comes across the line. Is there going to be an improvement? Yes, there is. He found a lot of time in the final sector. Puts him up to 7th fastest. But had he found more time in the second sector as well, he would be much higher up there. Somewhere in the top 5. Maybe even up to P4, depending on how quick he could have gone in that middle sector. But so far, I'd say the driver's having a big difficult time right there, but Dermachoglu has shown that he's still up there with the best of the best, going to a 39.111, and that means 3rd fastest as Stefano Ramazio improves to P5. Keanu Liatou is about to cross the line. Let's see, he's gone 2/10 faster there, and there we go then. Wow, what a lap time from Keanu Liatou. He's definitely up there with the best tonight. He's showing that he's really willing to try for the championship. He's hadn't had the best of luck through the season so far, with a 5th and a 7th place from what I can see in the standings, standing 7th in the drivers so far. But this is a massive lap, more than 2/10 quicker than Shane Turpkov. The first go into a 1:38, and he goes off the road again at exactly the same corner. Bit of a show up there.
Yeah, really unfortunate, but for Keanu Liatou, wow, what a lap that was. First driver into the 38s, and even for Jane, and maybe even Dehar as well, it's going to be such a tricky lap to beat because it is so fast, and to be 2/10 quicker than Jane Turpkov. And with drivers really struggling to improve on their lap times as well, expect that to maybe be your pole time come the end of the session, unless he is willing to go out and improve on it. But we've had such big gaps in this qualifying session. I don't want to be a skeptic here or just speculate anything, but with how big the gaps are, I know it's a tricky circuit, but could there be rain on the cards? Because could people be running a bit of a wet setup on, making their qualifying lap time slower in the dry, and maybe, just maybe, hindering their pace slightly? Because look at that, it's nearly 2 seconds between Candy King and Keanu Liato.
Yeah.
And that's not really something you would see here in Tier 3. Of course,
No.
this is the third tier on PC, so they're just 2 steps below the esports drivers. And with how big those gaps are, especially as you go from Lucas Woolstow down to Ivan Santamaria, is there rain? If not, then this is just a wild qualifying session where no one's able to hook up a lap.
That is a very interesting suggestion you make there. That might actually be the case. Who knows? We'll find out. We'll have to wait, unfortunately, as you know, as we all know, the commentators, aka spectators, cannot see what the weather is going to do coming to the next session. So we'll have to, that's only guesswork we can do so far, but that would definitely be a good explanation as to why the gap is so big tonight. I said before, the gap so far on average between all of the drivers have been much smaller than this. No more than a second, that's for certain, as we see Danny Coe. I was saying Danny Go, but he's definitely gonna have a go here. But he's invalidated this lap as well before he even started it. So once again, just driving around, trying to find the optimal setup, which might be another hint at them trying out the best for what could be a rainy race. Wouldn't that be fascinating with these drivers now going out for their final attempts? Let's see what they all can do. We're watching Ivan Santamaria right here, the man sitting in 6th in the championship, P4 and P8 so far out of the 3 races, and 1 non-point finish in Saudi Arabia. We all know Ivan Santamaria can be quite quick. At the moment, he finds himself somewhere in the upper midfield in qualifying here in Baku. Let's see if he can improve as we see the final preparations for the final hot laps of this qualifying.
Yeah, let's see what these drivers can do. Can anyone get anywhere near Keanu Liato's time, who has come out for another run in this session? Luca Woolstow needs to come out now if he wants to get a run on the board here for the final lap. But the first driver to be setting a lap here, I think, could be the Alpine. Oh, actually, no, that's Danny Coe trying to go back into the pit lane.
Miles, yeah.
Oh, Luca Woolstow's retired in the pit lane. There was a yellow flag in the final the middle sector, and I thought that was someone crashing out there as I saw the notification pop up. But it's going to be the Mercedes of Zach Miles to get us underway here in Azerbaijan. You can see the sun is setting. The track conditions are obviously getting cooler, which means maybe a few more slides as Dehar has got a 5-place grid penalty. So I think we are going to have a lobby restart for this one, just due to that 5-place grid penalty there. So here we go then with Zach Miles to get these final runs of qualifying underway. The Mercedes heading up to the line with the DRS, of course, putting the battery on halfway down this main straight so you don't burn out by the time you get down to the start-finish line as you've reached the end of your lap. Nicely done through turn 1, a bit of a squirmy exit, but as he now enters turn 2, get the foot back to the floor as quickly as you possibly can to get the best run possible down this really long back straight into turn number 3. You then late on the brakes at the 100-meter pull, down to 4th gear, get it into that first apex. He's missed it slightly and he's tapped the wall on the outside of turn 3 there, into turn 4 now. Try get that car rotated, and he has done quite well. And as he heads into turns 5 and 6, a very tricky chicane to make sure you don't lock the rears and to make sure you don't understeer wide through turn 5 or 6. He's done that again very, very nicely as you now head into turn 7, down to 3rd gear. Use all the track you possibly can by cutting that inside curb as you head into the castle section. A bit wide through there. He's tapped both the walls. A slide as well through turn 11. That's going to be lap over. Super committed from Zach Miles, but unfortunately wasn't able to get a competitive lap time in there in the end. Just too committed, overdrove that car, and now all eyes turn over to Ivan Santamaria as he is trying to set a lap time that will get him into that top 6.
Let's see if he can do it. 1.5 tenths quicker through the middle sector. That is aiming for P6 indeed. He'll have to find a lot more time if he wants to try and beat Stefano Romazio, who in his turn is also probably on his way to a big improvement here. As qualifying, the checkered flag has already fallen right there, as you can see on the finish line. So Ivan Santamaria's last attempt is gonna have to count for something big. Let's see where he can go as he goes across the line. Up to P6, a 39.2. He did come very close to Ivan Santamaria. Then Pulkis, wow, look at that big improvement all the way up to P7. Next car to cross the line is the car of Zach Miles. He goes back into the pit lane. Let's see Dea Demachoglu just behind his teammate Riley Mackay improving to P6. Dea, look at that, 38.779. That is a new provisional pole time. We're just waiting for the final drivers to come in. Tamas Kirkany going all the way up to P3. Let's see where Jane Turpkov is at the moment. Across the line, didn't improve on his first attempt, stays 4th, now down to 5th. Wilson Hall improving to 39.0. Gregory Putzibil up to P4, but we're just waiting for Keanu Liato to come across the line. There's several cars ahead of him to finish still, but I believe Keanu Liato has abandoned his lap. And that means, despite his brilliant second attempt, it was not meant to be for a pole position. And that means our championship leader, once again, flexing his skills right here tonight with another pole position written to his name, his second this season. Let's see if he can turn this one into a third victory in Tier 3.
Yeah, really unfortunate there for Keanu Liato as well. He was up in that first sector, but then a really scruffy middle sector there, and for Deha, really nicely done from the Haas man to put himself onto pole position. We are going to have a lobby restart, and I was right. I've just looked at the Discord, and due to this lobby restart, I don't think there's going to be rain anymore, but there was rain on the cards, so that's probably why it was so spread out throughout the field, and my prediction was right, but unfortunately, we might get that brutally taken away from us, and that is going to affect so many drivers' Grand Prix for the ones that decided to do that session on a wet setup, and ultimately cost themselves a good chance of getting a good qualifying position for the feature race if we don't have rain after this lobby restart.
Yeah, that's a bit of a surprise to me, to be honest. I think many drivers have actually, as you said, set up their cars for the upcoming race. And they'll be a little bit disappointed on that one. I'm just checking the times here. Drax is very much off the pace tonight. He's 1.6 seconds off pole position. Candy King finds himself just above that. Several drivers down there who I didn't expect them to be. Zach Miles, of course, had completely thrown his final attempt down the bin. Finds himself in 13th. He's going to have a big job ahead of him to improve. And look at the weather here. This is what it should have been. And it's not going to happen. That is quite tragic indeed. Not sure what I'm thinking of that. But this will probably be a relief to some of the drivers who will not have to drive around in the rain. Not this weather. It's not going to happen. Although it might be. We'll see. It's we'll find out what the weather is going to do with the new dynamic settings. People in the Discord also asking for a new lobby because of desync. So let's find out what's going to happen. Whether it's going to be in the same lobby or whether it's going to be a new one completely. Park for May is off. I can see Elliot saying in the chat there, Park for May is off. So the wet weather setup theory we had going on completely crumbles before us. And the new lobby is confirmed, which is going to make this last a little longer, this restart that is coming up. So apology about that one. Unfortunately, not much we can do about that one there. But that means we've got some time to talk ourselves through the qualifying results. Of course, you're not that familiar yet, I believe, with Tier 3, but who stood out for you in this qualifying, apart from our obvious pole sitter?
Someone who really did stand out there was not only Keanu Liato, but Tamas as well. That was a really good lap time from him to go just under a tenth away from Deha, and 300ths off Keanu Liato there at the end. So it was a really good qualifying session for him, but that's kind of a session where now you can't really take away who's going to be strong into the Grand Prix, because of course, yes, Part Ferme was off, but did some of the drivers know that? Did they just think, oh yeah, we can go on that wet setup straight away? But I mean, it's a circuit as well where it's a real outlier compared to others. Some drivers will be quick around here, some drivers not, and that could be the likes of your Dehas, of course, being quick around here. And then for the likes of Riley McKay, Ivan Santamaria, they're going to be a little bit further back, so not as confident around here. It's a very tricky circuit, and you need to be at one with the car to really perform around here. So yeah, I would say Gregory as well, Tamas, Keanu, they all really stood out to me there to be so close to Deha in the end, but just weren't on that fine edge enough, and were just so close to the limit but weren't able to find it. But for Deha, it's a perfect qualifying for him. But we're going to have to see how this race progresses, because it's surely going to be interesting, surely going to be chaotic around here, and yeah, we'll just have to wait and see.
Yeah, we've got a Tamás Kökeny fan in the chat as well, Devala Dominic. You'll be pleased to see that he'll be starting from 3rd place. Of course, he could be a championship contender as well, considering his first race was a 2nd place in Bahrain. But currently sitting 5th due to 2 non-point finishes, and I know that he definitely hasn't had the best of luck with fighting for position, has been involved in several incidents, causing him to have only 18 points on the board from that first race alone. But another podium could definitely up his points tally to get much closer to those fighting for 2nd place, which let's actually pull up those driver standings as we wait for the lobby to get restarted. Here we go. The driver standings as they stand right now: Luca Walster, Wilson Hall, Amos Lorito very close together as we said before, and right behind them is Tamás Kökeny. However, the difference between himself and P4 with Amos Lorito is 15 points already. So let's say that the 3 ahead of him do not score any points tonight. He finishes in 3rd. That would be a very good scenario for him to close the gap. Even better if he finishes higher than that, of course. But we have a lot of very fast reserve drivers in tonight, and they could definitely throw a spanner in the works for those title contenders, don't you think, Max?
Yeah, they certainly could, and that really will be what could maybe spice this race up slightly, as you do have those reserve drivers with nothing to lose, really. They won't really be under any pressure to try score points for the championship. They're driving their own race and trying to impress to maybe get a seat if someone drops out later on in the season. We don't know, but yeah, it's going to be interesting to see how it all plays out. But for Tamas, if he can get a strong result, and the likes of Amos, Wilson Hall, as you say, Woolstow, all just maybe have a bit more of a poor race, or even if he just outscores them slightly, he's going to slowly eat into that advantage that they have over him, and he can get himself back into this battle for 2nd. But still, it's going to be such a tricky race. A lot of mental fatigue could come into this one, because of course you're on the limit so much, in that castle section doing that perfectly 26 times is super tricky. So I would expect 1 or 2 drivers to lose a front wing at least through the castle section. So we'll just have to wait and see. But for Tamas, this is just a race where he knows if he gets a big result, he can just eat into that points lead of the cars in front of him, and overall try to get back into this battle for 2nd.
Yep, Elliot in the chat, he's not here tonight, but he wants to watch the race, definitely. We saw him in the chat already, of course. He wants to see the chaos, he says. So let's see if that chaos is going to be realized here tonight. Of course, that full wet race we saw when the lobby was still the first one is likely not going to happen. The weather has been reset to dynamic, so the weather could still change, of course. But I would love to see some rain in an already hectic, chaotic, and very energy-draining circuit that is Azerbaijan. Anyways, back to those reserves. Of course, they are going to drive their own race, but there are some reserves that are teammates of those fighting for the title. And I feel like, for example, Riley McKay, teammate of Deir Demircioglu, going to find out where he's actually going to start from, if I remember correctly. There we go, starting from 8th, quite far behind his teammate. But maybe he could try and help out Deir Demircioglu from behind a little bit, trying to hold up those drivers who are challenging him for that championship lead. Same could be said for Jane Turpkov, teammate of Tamás Kökeny. Of course, Tamás in 5th in the driver standings at the moment, this being the first race for Jane. Is he going to be a helper of Tamás, or is he going to drive his own race? Those are all questions we'll find answers to very soon. I believe the lobby has been refilled with all 19 drivers present. That means the grid is being set up as we speak. Both of us are in as well, so that's good news also. And in a few minutes' time, we will know who's going to lead after turns 1 and 2. Those are the very important corners at the start of the race. Predictions for the race win, let us know in the chat who you think is going to come out victorious after these 26 very hectic upcoming laps. I'm looking forward to this race, very much so.
Yeah, so am I. It's going to be super, super chaotic, I reckon, and super interesting to see who comes out on top here. So, again, we'll just have to wait and see. Strategy is going to be a big thing, and we never know. It could still be raining, but the chances of that now happening are super, super slim. So we'll just have to wait and see. But now we really see if drivers were somewhat on that wet setup, or if they were just a bit slow in that qualifying session, and maybe a bit more of a race-orientated setup of that. But we'll just see what happens. It's going to be super, super interesting to see how the reserves play out in this one as well. Does the likes of Riley McKay help out Dehar and really just cement their teammates' championship lead, or do they race for themselves? Of course, we're only on round 4 of the season. Of course, it's a 10-race season, so next week we'll be halfway to the end of the season already. So again, we'll just have to really see what they do. Do they drive their own race? Do they help out their teammates? Or do they just overall just play it by ear and see where their drivers are and then help them out or not? So yeah, we'll just wait and see. It's going to be super, super interesting, super chaotic, as I said. Going to be many front wings lost around the circuit like this, and that opening lap got a high chance of a safety car being caused because that opening 2 corners, very, very tight, very, very technical. It's very easy for someone to be looped around by a little bit of contact.
Indeed. I've just pulled up the calendar as you were speaking about where we are at this point in the season. 4 races in, with Azerbaijan being the 4th round. Coming up still are Canada next week, of course, then just after the Easter weekend, which is still technically a holiday in the Netherlands here. On April 1st, Italy, Monza, of course. Last week we had Imola, next week you have Italy. That's lucky for Amos Lorito, because he will have 2 home races, and he did brilliantly in his first home race last week, so that's going to be a benefit for him for sure. Then China, of course, coming up in round 7, then an always popular track in Austria, the Red Bull Ring. Round 8, then the second to last round being Miami, always provides some interesting races in league racing as well. And then, of course, the famous circuit in Brazil. It's going to be a very interesting season, and also the final one in the F1 23 game, as you can see, the season finishes at the end of April, which is about a month before the new game releases, and we'll all be crossing our fingers for the next game to have a bit better multiplayer or general game experience. But we'll find out. All we can do is wait and see. We're also waiting now for the drivers to ready up, select their car setups, and in a few seconds, as you can see the screen here already, we will be knowing what the weather will be doing, at least for the start of the race. And hopefully somebody in the chat does have some inside information from one of the drivers about the rest of the race in terms of weather. Let's talk strategy though. The best tire to start on, I'd say, is the hard tire, Max.
Yeah, I would say the same thing. It's a very useful tire to go on for. The medium hard is usually the strategy of choice around this circuit and just on this game in general. So yeah, we'll have to wait and see what the drivers do. But yeah, hard medium, easy strategy. Box around about that 15-16, but that can easily be derailed by a safety car here. And unfortunately, we don't have the rain here. Frost. It is going to be a dry start to this Grand Prix at the very least.
We might see some Fs in the chat for the rain having died off, but still could be joining us about halfway or later in the race, potentially making this race even more interesting than it is going to be already. As I said, 19 drivers readying up as we speak. We are missing 1 Williams car because unfortunately the second driver couldn't make it. Neither full-time driver for the Williams team are present tonight. Neither Elliot nor Balen Talikis are going to be here in Azerbaijan, as Elliot apparently is suffering from PTSD, and Balen Talikis has I believe he was on the grid beforehand, but he unfortunately has called off for this race, and we couldn't find a second reserve driver, so that's a bit of a shame. You're right, Elliot, sad times with no rain. Would have been quite interesting to see how the drivers would cope with that one. Nonetheless, they'll most likely then select a dry setup. Pick the hard tire for the start of the race. Move on to the mediums, unless you're really brave and want to try medium to soft. I know some drivers are capable of doing that. I've seen it work through several different tracks. Not sure if it would work on Azerbaijan. It could probably work, as there's plenty of slow corners and only a few fast ones. Turns 13, 14, and then of course the final 3, 18, 19, and what is technically not really a corner, turn 20, fast corners right there. But yeah, let's find out who'll be leading the race in turn 1. Anything you'd like to say before we get going, Max? Any last words before we start?
Well, I would say everyone to buckle up, get ready for what should be a carnage fest, because of course this circuit known for its chaotic crash fests, not just in league racing but in real life as well. So expect a lot of debris, at least one safety car. If we don't get a safety car, then massive respect to the drivers for being able to get round this circuit for 26 times without a huge incident happening. So yeah, just expect a safety car, buckle up, and let's get this roller coaster of a race underway.
Yeah, Elliot is definitely buckled up already in the chat, given 4 reasons why he couldn't race tonight. No, having no wheel, which is fair enough. Anyway, there we go. 5 red lights are about to come on, and there they are. Let's see if Deja Demijoka can keep the lead from Keanu Liatel as they now drive away. A slow start from somebody in the back that I believe is one of the Alpines there going a slow off the line. But it's Deja Demijoka leading quite easily into turn 1. Tomasz Kokony trying to attack Keanu Liatel for second position. Many drivers going side by side here. Wilson Hall, I believe, fighting for a position with Jane Turpkov. Luca Walstow, and actually the second AlphaTauri there, was fighting with Savannah Romazio, who's trying to claw back at him, trying to regain P8. But so far, it looks like everybody's made this start quite safely. Stefano Romazio trying to go around the outside, unsuccessful. We also see Ivan Santamaria, Zach Miles fighting there. Zach Miles trying to get on the inside, unsuccessful. Now finds himself on the threat for the other Alfa Romeo of Polkis, who does move ahead of the Mercedes, but Zach Miles tries to fight back. Interestingly, the biggest fight's happening in the midfield at the moment, and there goes Keanu Liatel. He nearly went for it in the next corner right there, turn 7, and now they go side by side again as Deja Demijoka went a little bit too wide, but Deja's definitely not giving it up just yet, going in through the castle. He regains the lead of the race, miraculously not coming together there as the road became very tight going inside the castle section. And Keanu Liatel will have to yield a little bit there. Let's turn on the battery level, see how they're doing right there. But so far, a very safe start from everybody, so GG to everyone. And the first lap is looking to be quite clean. No safety cars out there just yet. And there, Dimitroglu, while leading the race, seems he's going to have a potential big fight on his hands from Keanu Liatel in second position.
Wow, pure bravery there from Deja, pure commitment to keep that race lead. But now he's under threat, heading down into turn 1. The slipstream is going to be Keanu Liatel's biggest friend down this main straight for now, as we're going to go look to the outside line. I don't think he's going to be able to pull this one off. He might be shown the door by Deja in front, but not able to get the move done, and just sits behind into turn 1. Ivan Santamaria being overtaken there by Zach Miles. You've got Jane Turpkov versus Riley McKay. This is over 7th place in the Grand Prix. Round the outside goes the McLaren. Can't get the move done on the Haas in front. So both Haas drivers just being a bit too wide for some of these drivers to get by at the moment. But for Deja, real commitment into that castle section. Smart by Keanu Liatel as well, not to fight it really and just let the Haas keep that inside line. Because of course, if they went side by side through there, both of them would have been into the wall and probably out of this Grand Prix. So Keanu Liatel thinking the long game, knowing they will have another opportunity to get by in this Grand Prix. And of course, next time by, the DRS will be enabled. The first DRS zone that will be used is down into turn 3, and that's where Keanu Liatel could mount his next attack on Deja, but will have to keep within DRS of the Haas in front of him to make sure that it works. But so far so good for all of these drivers. No one having to come into the pit lane on the opening lap, which is quite a rare sight.
Very
around
rare,
a circuit like Baku. And everyone still within DRS train. But here comes Zach Miles on Stefano Romazio. and he gets the move done on those soft compound tyres. The only
Yep.
driver on the softs, a very opportunistic strategy from the Mercedes, but he's making them work at the moment. He's up into 9th place, but we'll have to see if he's able to hold on to this. But Pukis is round. Pukis down into 19th. The reserve driver spinning around there, and unfortunately there, after what was a very, very good start to this one, has dropped down to 19th place and is now off the back of this train as Riley McKay versus Wilson Hall. Can Riley get past the AlphaTauri of Wilson? Going to be side by side as they head up into turn 1. And Riley later on the brakes. Wilson not trying to hold that one round the outside. I think if you're on the inside there, you're certain to get the move done into turn 1. But now DRS is enabled here for us. We could maybe see Keanu Liato get the move done on Dehar for that lead of the Grand Prix.
I'm not sure if he's going to. He's not even bothering with the ERS. He's even moving out of the slipstream. He knows, as you said before, he's going to have to play the long game. They're both on equal tires, both on hards, and the top 3 are all the same tires. In fact, there's 4 drivers as far as I can see on the mediums. Polk is of course having had to pull in the pit lane to go for a new set. Now he's on the mediums as well. Zach Miles, indeed, very opportunistic, the only driver to go on the softs, but then again, Zach Miles is known to be a very opportunistic driver at times, and he's gonna go aggressive with the strategy. Let's see if he can pull it off. So far, though, only 9th, probably not where he wanted to be after 2.5 laps finished. So let's see which fights are going to happen on track very soon. Let's watch Zach Miles actually for a little bit as he hunts down Luca Wolstow for P8. He's got Stefano Romazio right behind him. Stefano actually being much closer to Zach Miles than Zach is to Luca Wolstow, with about half a second of a gap, which is relatively big if you consider all of these gaps. All of them, literally all of them, except one, are within a DRS train. So overtaking is going to be a challenge, except for Alfredson, who is trying to take the position from Ivan Santamaria and successfully doing so. However, that means there's now a big gap between himself and the next car, Drax Alpine in P11. That means Roland Alfredson is now going to be under big pressure from cars behind. There goes Ivan Santamaria past. There goes Jeremy Gallagher as well. We'll see Danny Cole having a go as well. We'll also see Amos Lorito, who finds himself in 16th place down there, also trying to get past. So Alfredson from 12th down to, well, still 15th, as he doesn't let Amos Lorito through that easily. But Amos will have the inside line here. Does that go nicely and safely? Somewhat-ish. And now Amos Lorito has to try again with Alfredson having DRS this time, as Jeremy Gallagher goes up to P12 and goes and try to hunt down the top 11, who are still within DRS range and slowly edging away from this group right here. But so far, I'd say Amos Lorito, very disappointing, far behind the field. He's fighting for second in the standings. This is not where he wants to be.
No, it's certainly not when your rivals are up in the points here of Wilson Hall and also Luca Wolstow. But Luca Wolstow isn't really scoring too many points, so Wilson Hall can maybe get that second place and somewhat have a good gap heading into next week. But we'll have to wait and see as this race progresses, because of course we're only on lap 4 of 26 and there's still a long way to go here in Baku. Easy to make a mistake around a circuit like this. Tamas has dropped out of DRS to Keanu Liato in front, and that allows Gregory to now be within DRS range and have somewhat of an easy opportunity, you would think. But Tamas has found the time he needed through those last 2 corners to get back within that DRS of Keanu Liato, who's now all over the back of Dehar as they head down this main straight. Is the Red Bull going to be looking for a move on the Haasman in front? He's getting closer and closer and closer. DRS will be open. He's going to look to that inside line. Dehar will squeeze heading down that main straight, but Keanu Liato, with that superior straight line speed, will get the move done. Further back, we might even see 3 wide with Wilson Hall, Jane, and Riley McKay as well. Jane to the inside of Wilson Hall, not able to get the move done, and Tripkov having just to sit behind once more. But Wilson Hall was also looking at Riley McKay as he headed down that straight, but wasn't close enough to get the move done. Dehar, is he getting close enough to Keanu Liato? Yes, he is. He's going to look to the inside through turn 3, but elects to back out of that one, wanting to sit behind, wanting to save the tyres and the battery. And now the battle for the lead might now become one purely based on strategy, because Dehar seeming to be very happy to sit behind. Of course, wants to keep his podium streak going. 2 race wins in a row and a second place at the start of the season. Can he make it 3 on the bounce here in Baku? Lap 5 of 26, Dehar just sitting behind Keanu Liato, and the Red Bull leading the way for the first time in this Grand Prix.
Yeah, I think what Dea and Keanu were trying to do is pulling away from the rest of the field by towing one another along. Unfortunately, that hasn't really worked out as Tamash's pace has picked up big time, and he finds himself, well, not as much in striking distance anymore, but he closed up as much to just under half a second a few corners ago. Let's see, in the middle sector he appears to be struggling a little bit compared to the 2 cars ahead, as his gap is increasing through that part, especially Gregory Pritsibil from behind, trying to stay with him as well. He's on the mediums, trying to make the most of the middle compound tires. Riley Mackay, of course, on the mediums as well, trying to get closer to his teammate. Let's see whoever is within striking distance to make a move. I'd say from the timing screen, if it's of course, it is definitely Dea Demachoglu retaking the lead as expected from Keanu Lieto. Tomasz Kokani still had DRS, however he finds himself on the brink of losing it to the 2 cars ahead. Fortunately, he will still have it after this corner here, which will save him a bit of battery trying to defend from behind, because it's already almost half empty. Of course, those cars behind putting on plenty of pressure, as we're watching Luka Wolstow getting quite close to Jane Turpkov, but he's going out of the slipstream. He doesn't want to make the overtake. Zach Miles, however, wants to fight wherever he can, as per usual, but he gets overtaken. What's going on there? A bit of a tap, I believe, a near incident, but Zach Miles is still okay. Jeremy Gallagnier, I believe, got a little bit into the wall, and now he finds himself with a bit of a bigger gap than he would have liked, with 2 Alpines behind as well. That's Drax getting pushed through the corner by his teammate Danny Coe there. The Alpines fighting now for position all of a sudden, while they actually should be trying to hunt down the top 10 together. Unfortunately, it looks like Drax has lost a little bit of pace. Maybe there was a bit of contact involved then with the incident we saw happen a few corners ago, but things are starting to heat up definitely as we progress further through this race. Let's see what else is going on. Well, it's starting to calm down a little bit apart from that incident. We know Polkas has gotten the fastest lap of the race. Well, let's see how this story continues.
Yeah, it was Jeremy Gallagher just going so deep on the brakes into turn 3, sliding, locking the rears and into the wall. So I don't know if Drax has got any damage from that incident, because he's going very wide, and now he does have you would see he's probably got a bit of damage on that Alpine, so he's now having to just coast this one home. Make sure you don't hit that outside wall, because that's an instant retirement. You don't really want to take your teammate out with you, but I think if the Drax does come into the pit lane here as Keanu Lieto gets past Dehar up in front, he's really shot his teammate in the foot there, has Drax, by holding him up through that whole middle sector. So now, Danny Cote with a lot of work on to do. Oh, and I think that was Ivan Santamaria into the back of Danny Cote there into turn 1. It's disaster for Alfa Romeo. Both their cars have had a spin, and it looks like Ivan Santamaria has just come out the pit lane, but he has not. He's gone for a spin at turn 1, and the Alfa Romeo man down into 17th place. His teammate behind him in 18th. And that has just gone from bad to worse for Alfa Romeo. But Danny Cote with a lot of work on his hands to try catch up to Jeremy Gallagher in front. And that DRS train now spanning all the way down to 11th place. And of course, Keanu Lieto now just over a second away from Dehar. So I don't know if Dehar's made a mistake here, because he is now on the cusp of losing DRS to your race leader in the Red Bull. And Dehar with a lot of work to do in this middle sector.
Yeah, let's see if he can stay with Keanu. He's been quite strong so far this race, but it seems he's starting to struggle a little bit. Although out of the castle section, he's got a much better exit. Look at that, he's getting 3/10 pretty much on this race right here. Is Jeremy Gallagher. There he goes past Zach Miles. Those soft tires have started to lose their grip slightly, and Zach Miles is starting to feel it right here. Let's see what he can do to stay with the rest of the field. Jeremy Gallagher, of course, trying to stay with the top 9 as they slowly move away from him. He's barely within DRS range. Stefano Ramaccio do everything to make sure the Williams is not going to open their rear wing, but it looks like it's going to happen anyway. But Jeremy, in the meantime, has used a lot of battery to try and stay with the group. Zach Miles, in the meanwhile, I wonder when he's going to pit, has used up a lot of battery too. Jeremy Gallagher just can't seem to keep up the pace, and he's definitely lost out on the straight. It seems like his car might have gotten a bit more downforce as Amos Dorito makes another move, gets closer to the top 10. However, now he's got a big job to do himself as Wilson Hall there gets past Riley Mackay, and so just ain't Jane Turpkov. Riley probably went a bit too deep in turn 2 from what I could see there. And now he finds himself a bit further back than he probably would have liked. Jane Turpkov nearly going for a move on Wilson Hall with a Mercedes with Gregory Pritsibil just ahead. Those mediums probably a little bit past their peak as well right now. I think the hard tires at the moment correct me if I'm wrong, are the fastest.
I would say so as well. They are certainly the tyre to be on. And to be honest, the tyre expected everybody to be on, unless, of course, you were caught up in an accident early on, like the likes of Pukis and Drax. But the medium tyres, they are still going to have some decent pace in this stage, but I would say the hard tyres are certainly the ones to be on. You can go long into this stint and you'll be on the quicker tyre come the end. So for the likes of Wilson Hall and Jane Tripkov, they now need to make their way past Gregory with a rather quick approach to get past the Mercedes up in front. 4 tenths the gap, now up to 5 tenths as Wilson Hall with a big slide straight. Dehar and Keanu swapping places once more as has Tamas got DRS? Yes, he does, just by the skin of his teeth. Heading down into turn 1, he's got some DRS, but he's had a big slide there. A big moment through that first corner as Luca Wolstow now gets past Riley McKay. We're going to see 3 wide maybe into turn 2 as Stefano also gets by Riley McKay as well. Ramazio manages to get past the Haas, and now he turns his attention to Luca Wolstow in front. He's going to go to the outside line, threading the needle between the AlphaTauri and the wall as Ramazio goes up into 7th place. And he's now got to try and get into the DRS of Jane Tripkov in front. But Riley McKay's medium tyres are starting to hit the cliff. So are Gregory's as well. So it seems if you want to get to the end of the Grand Prix here, come the end of the race, or if you're on those hards, don't box until about lap 15, lap 16. So you have to do 10 laps. And that's probably the optimum stint for these medium tyres so far.
Definitely, yeah. I apologize. I think OBS just said it lost the connection for a little bit, so I hope the stream didn't get interrupted too much. Let me know whether the stream is alright or not if you're in the chat. But I think everything is going fine, as I haven't seen anybody say that the stream has gone. So yeah, apologies about that one. Not much I could do about that. OBS decided to be a little bit uncooperative. Yeah, thank you, Elliot, for confirming. It did give up for a few seconds. Thankfully, OBS is smart enough to reconnect. But there we go. Big news. The headlines here. Dead Dimitroglu. Is he going to have DRS here? He's barely staying within it. Even though his battery is still pretty much full. He's not even pushing hard to get back to Keanu Liatou. Look at that. His straight line speed is actually a little better than the Red Bulls, I'd say, because he hasn't used a single bit of ERS and he's easily back within DRS range. It's just waiting and seeing whether Keanu is going to make a mistake. Saving his tires, saving the battery is definitely gonna benefit him later down the line. Meanwhile, Wilson Hall is knocking on Pritzibil's door, trying to get past. He's knocking it very hard at the moment as Jeremy Gallagher gets past Riley McKay, so does Zach Miles somehow. But we're watching Wilson Hall right here. Unfortunately, he's not going to go for a move. We see Amos Lorito a bit further back, also going for a move from Riley McKay. Not sure what's happened to the Haas, but those mediums seem to be in a wing damage. Let's see if we can actually see it. Yes, it's on the right front, isn't it? The front end plate, I believe, has gotten a little bit of damage. It's a little difficult to see in this game, but I think, yeah, the front right end plate has gone missing on the Haas. That's very unfortunate. He was doing a brilliant job so far, but now he's going to struggle for sure. But he's going to try and hold up as many drives he possibly can to help out his teammate, even though no threat from behind for the championship leader at the moment. As Danico is the next car to try and get past the Haas, especially in the castle. Danico will find that he's very slow to try and get past the Haas. He's going to have to try here then, a better exit. Well, no, it's not happening just yet, but there he goes, side by side, and easily goes past the Haas there. So does Roland Alfredson, both Aston Martins actually, as Riley McKay decides to let them pass for safety reasons. That's a very smart move by him, to make sure nobody loses any unnecessary amounts of time. In the meanwhile, Jeremy Gallagher finds himself a little bit ahead of Zach Miles, who in his turn is getting Amos Lorito for a little bit of a visit from behind, as the man who's trying to fight for second in the standings tries to enter the top 10 by going past the Mercedes, and it looks like Zach Miles is gonna go for a pit stop as we see another switch from the race leaders. There we go, the first proper pit stop of the night, I'd say, for Zach Miles. Let's see which tires he's going to take on. He's going to go for another gamble, and he's going to go for that bold strategy I was talking about before the start of the race, from softs to mediums, and I wonder if that is going to work this race.
Oh, it's going to be very tricky for him to do there, Zach Miles. Of course, we saw those medium tyres have started to hit that cliff ever so slightly, but it certainly could be possible. 16 laps on those medium compounded tyres. Still going to be a very, very big ask, but we'll have to wait and see, of course. He's got less fuel on board, which means less wear, theoretically, and those mediums should go a bit further than what we've seen. Riley McKay picking up the front wing damage. I think he got it at turn 2 when he got overtaken by Jeremy Galanaya and Zach Miles as well. I think he just went too deep into turn 2 and hit the wall there. We saw him do that a few laps ago, and he just repeated the same trick there. But this battle, 4P4, Gregory going to lose DRS at the moment, but that straight line speed for the Mercedes, absolutely rapid, but he's struggling in those corners as he now heads through turn 16 as you head down the hill into 17, and for Gregory, he needs to get back within that DRS, and he is. 8 tenths is the gap between him and Tamas in front. So once again, Wilson Hall, frustratingly, is going to be stuck behind the AlphaTauri as they head down that main straight. But look at that, Gregory losing time, now finding, now losing again. Is he going to have it? No, Wilson Hall with the battery manages to get the move done before he even hits the DRS zone. He does have DRS as well, but Gregory will try fight this one back with a slipstream. Keanu Lieto and Dehar swapping places once more. There is no real point really getting excited about that battle at the front, because these two have been swapping places all race long, and it's just an attempt to save their tyres and also just to stop any threats from behind on that top 2. That's Roland Alfredson into the pit lane. He's going to be on to a set of the mediums as now here comes Jane Tripkov. It's now started a chain reaction here. Wilson all getting past Gregory as Jane Tripkov to the inside, and he's able to get past the Mercedes with ease as well. So now expect Gregory to start to fall down the order at quite a rate of knots, as he's still got Ramazio and Luca Wolstow behind, and then he's got a bit of a gap to Amos Lorito in 9th place. But Gregory starting to drop down the order here. Those medium tyres well and truly have started to hit their breaking point.
We're butchering these names so hard, aren't we?
Yes.
Anyway, I wonder where Zach Mize is going to come out. Of course, he's pushing hard now to get in front of as many cars as he possibly can after they've all pitted. His tyres now 1 lap old, 3.2 seconds behind Candy King, so he's still got a bit of a gap to go until he reaches the next driver on old hard tyres. Candy King 7.5 seconds behind the rest of the field. He must have had a bit of an incident as well. I've just got information in the chat about Riley Mackay as well, as he actually apparently hit the bit of wall at the turn 1 exit that sticks out, according to Elliot. So thank you for that update. It's always good to get some insider information on things we can't see. We only have one camera we can look at, even when we're together as 2 commentators. If we see Stefano Ramazio going for an overtake, but it doesn't really an overtake, as Gregory is going to go in the pit box. And interestingly, on the hard tires, the first one to do so, along with Amos Lorito, Luca Wolstow, Jeremy Gallagher as well. They've all decided to go a bit early on those hards. It's only halfway through the race, but they've seen Zach Miles probably going for the mediums, and they want to try and go for the same. Zach Miles, in fact, moves past all of them, up into 10th for the time being, still behind Candy King, but closing that gap rapidly. He's already within 1 second. He has to get past quickly through the Ferrari there, and he already is very much near the rear of the red car ahead. But I don't think he's going to get past in turn 3, and that will trouble him through the middle sector, as he's of course much faster on those fresh mediums. Whoa, what happened there? Candy King, I'm not sure what happened. He's gone into the runoff area. He's broke too late, and that's a lucky thing for Zach Miles. Not so much for Candy King, as he's already had a disastrous race. It's now gotten much worse. Thankfully for him, ghosting is on. That will not cause any major disasters, as I believe he's reset himself to the track as he teleported to the inside of the corner all of a sudden. But that, I'm not sure what happened there. Probably outbrake himself, trying to stay ahead of Zach Miles. That didn't really work out for him. In the meanwhile, Ivan Santamaria has got a big group of cars behind him. They're all trying to get past. It's Drax Amos Lorito on the fresh mediums, of course. He's trying to pull off the undercut. It's not working brilliantly with 2 slower cars ahead. One of them on 6-lap olds. Oh, what happened there in the castle section? That is Jeremy Gallagher out. We quickly switch to Candy King's perspective to see what exactly happened. But he's crashed out of the race. He's just gone out of the pit box to try the undercut. It hasn't worked, and unfortunately we can't see how exactly he crashed, but I'd say he went right into the wall. That is not a full safety car, interestingly, but a virtual one. I'd expected a full one there.
Yeah, so did I, but this now helps everybody that stayed out until this lap to now come in for a cheap pit stop and somewhat extend their lead over the cars behind. Zach Miles' undercut strategy here has not worked unless he's going to be able to jump a few as they're heading out the pit lane. Of course, they're trundling down. We're back to green flag racing now. Where does Zach Miles come out compared to the drivers that came into the pit lane there? Stefano, he's actually only able to get past Ramatko there. Tripkov, of course, in that double stack, lost a huge amount of time there. He's now behind Luca Wolstow by 4.2 seconds, and that's affected his race massively as Tamas, of course, the lead McLaren there, benefiting from that. So for McLaren, that virtual safety car, not well timed for them, but for Tamas, he's now behind Wilson Hall, and we can see what will happen here. But that was really unfortunate for Jeremy Gallinea there. Of course, was on that undercut strategy, and he's obviously gone too deep. I don't know if he's tried passing the Aston Martin of Roland Alfredson heading into the castle section. That's why he's gone into the wall. He's just locked up on those cold tyres and headed straight into the barrier. So unfortunate there for Jeremy Gallinea, our first DNF of the Grand Prix after 14 laps, which is actually very surprising.
Oh my goodness, there goes the next one. Sorry to interrupt you, but there goes Drex straight into the wall. And that's a full safety car! Just after the virtual ended, I was watching Drex, and there it just goes bang into the wall, but why he doesn't retire. So this is interesting. Jeremy Gallinea retires, and there's a virtual safety car. Then Drex has still got his car, but without the front wing, and that just has decided for the game it's good enough for a full safety car. So, yeah, pick up your standards here, Mr. Game. But let's see what this is going to do for all of these drivers. Are they going to come in for another set of tires? I don't think they will. No, that would be a weird decision to make, to be fair. But let's see what happens to Tomasz Kokeny. Well, there goes Zach Miles, interestingly, of course. Well, this is going to make his race even more difficult. He's going to go for a fresh set of mediums, but he'll be at the back of the field, and his tires are only going to be 1 up to 2 laps fresher than the rest, so I'm not sure how much of an advantage this is going to be for the Mercedes. Several others decided to come in as well. Polkes, of course, being on all the tires. Ivan Santamaria doing the exact same thing. Double stack for Alfa Romeo. All the drivers at the back of the field coming in because they've got pretty much nothing to lose, so I say fair game to them. Well, this is interesting. Everybody's on the mediums except for Gregory Pritsibil. How much of a struggle will he have to go through when the safety car comes in? This race, well, it's gotten even more interesting than it already was, to be fair.
Yeah, it certainly has, and yeah, really, for Gregory, those hard tyres, will not heat up at all, and that will make this race extremely difficult for him. And we'll just have to wait and see. We'll just have to see how it works out for him. But I don't think it will work out in his favour because, of course, that was always the risk of starting on those mediums and then going on to the hards. It was that risk of a safety car coming out when you didn't need it to, and that was on this stint on the hards. On the mediums, you could then switch over quite quickly and make it all the way to the end of the race. But when you're on the hard compound tyre and it heats up slower, you've got less grip, less purchase compared to the fresher tyres around you. He's really going to be struggling here and could drop like a stone through the field. Of course, Zach Miles coming into the pit lane. It was somewhat of a needed change, but not at the same time. But of course, Zach having those 3-lap older tyres, that was going to affect his pace massively come the end of the Grand Prix. But he's only really got, you say 1 lap there, Frost, but really it's only half a lap advantage because of course the safety car come out while they're in the middle sector. So for Zach Miles, he's in a real spot of bother here, because not only does he have to make it past like a Quinton Dupuis and Amos Laruto, he's also got to go past the rest of the field, like Danico, Jane Tripkov, Luca Wolstow, and Gregory on those hards, who could be a real bottleneck in this Grand Prix after this safety car restart, and could really hold up the field. So Zach Miles could only be on for a low points finish here, but again, we're going to see how this race goes, because of course there's still another high chance of a safety car, and still a very odd choice to bring one out then, because of course Drax only lost his front wing, and whereas Jeremy Gallinea, I would say, was probably in a more dangerous location as well, where he crashed.
Yeah, it's always fascinating to see what the game considers to be safety car worthy and what is not. Nonetheless, everybody is almost together except for Candy King, who decided to come in again. Let's see, he switched to a fresh set of medium tires. He's literally had nothing to lose anyway, but it will take a little time for him to catch up again. Although I think it's fair to say that the safety car will come in at the end of this lap. And then we'll see who can cut their way through the field most efficiently. It's going to be a challenge and a half. Gregory Pritzibel, especially for the first few laps, is going to have a hard time staying with the rest on those hard tires. But other than that, Amos Arito finds himself in 10th. It's Danny Coe, who is back up in the points by this point. His best race finish, of course, last week, P9 as well. Let's see if he can make that one, or perhaps even several positions better than that. The reserve drivers on their debut. Let's see, the best one of them is Gregory on the hards, of course. Jane Turpkov in P8 at the moment, 4 positions behind Tamas Kokeny, who got pipped by Wilson Hall in the pit lane during the virtual safety car, and now finds himself out of the podium places. He would love to get back up there, as he's only got 1 second place so far this season, with 2 non-points finishes for the other 2 races following Bahrain. Let's see what other stories can we potentially watch for Ivan Santamaria. Can he climb any higher than P15? He will have to if he wants to stay within touching distance of second place in the standings. He's 2 points behind Tamas Kokeny right now. The safety car hasn't announced it coming in yet, but I think that might still happen when Candy King comes across the line. There we go. Safety car in this lap. So, Deir Demechoglu leading the field once again. That's a thing we've seen very often this season so far from the Haas driver. He's done brilliantly so far, but now he knows Keanu Liato can be a threat. Wilson Hall can also be really quick. He was fighting for the win last week as well. Tamas Kokeny was able to stay with the top 2 as well. So let's see who's going to come out best with 10 laps remaining in this race. It's definitely not rain happening here tonight. I wish it was, but there we go. On our way we go once again with a full safety car gone forever. Hopefully now, as we see Luca Wolstall already going for the move on George. Gregory Pritzibel going up to P6. Drax making a move on Ronald Alfredson in the back of the field, going up to 16th. And that's Tamas Kokeny trying to keep behind Stefano Romazio for P4, but he's having a struggle that allows Luca Wolstall to fight with the Ferrari as well. Now the Ferrari and the Alfa Tauri go side by side while bumping the McLaren of Tamas Kokeny ahead, trying to go faster. And a massive dive bomb there. That was unreal by Jane Turpkov, and definitely not something he should have done there in the first place. Now he's in the wall. Luca has fallen down the field. Stefano Romazio's down the field. Miraculously, his teammate Tamas Kokeny has still survived that major incident, but my goodness me, that was definitely not something, and I think he might have outbroken himself, and I believe Jane wasn't really out of the race, but has decided to retire, question mark. But that was, well, that was huge, but not really what he wanted to do, I'm sure.
No, that was so confusing.
Yeah.
The speed he carried into the corner. As you say, I have a feeling he's just outbroke himself.
Yeah, he's already apologized in the Discord.
Oh, and yeah, he's obviously not seen the brake meter boards because they are quite small on that right-hand side. Very difficult to spot as well with the shadows. So, yeah, he's obviously just outbroke himself and, of course, had nowhere to go. Tried avoiding action and tried taking as little amount of cars with him as possible. But unfortunately, he took both Luca Wolstall and Stefano Romazio with him as well. Super close to taking out his teammate in all of that, but just threaded the needle within that gap between Tamas and Stefano. But of course, hit the Ferrari and the Alfa Tauri. Stefano goes into pit lane and Tamas is retired.
What?
Tamas out at the exit of turn 1.
No way! Oh no, he's crashed the car, he's lost the front right tire, and somehow no safety car for this one.
Wow.
Again? I'm shocked by that decision, to be honest, because the car was right in the middle of the road, but that is the other McLaren out of the race, and that is heartbreak for both of the orange cars. One of them outbroke themselves, one of them probably outbroke as well, and then went into the wall, which is bad news for Tamas. He was trying to get back onto the podium, and once again, unsuccessful in doing so. And I'm not sure whether that was by somebody else tapping him in the rear or by his own fault completely. We unfortunately missed that one. But that is a very big disaster indeed for both of them. Also, big disaster, of course, for Luca Wolsto, who was fighting for second in the championship, finds his rivals in third and sixth. Amos Lorito has definitely benefited big time from all of the chaos. He was 16th at the start of the race, now finds himself in P6 as Danny Coe, another man who started from the back, finds himself fighting for P4 behind the Mercedes on the hard tires from Gregory Pritzibel. And he's trying to get past as quick as he can. That would be a mega result from him if he can manage to go to 4th place, as Gregory has lost connection to the top 3 entirely. Keanu Lieto still cooperating with Dea Demechoglu. Now find themselves under threat by Wilson Hall instead of Tomasz Kokeny. So unfortunate for the Hungarian driver in the McLaren, as DRS gets re-enabled. Amos Lorito gets up to P5. This race is far from over.
It certainly is. That was a very hectic last 2 laps that we've just had. Quinton Dupuis has just dropped down behind Drax and Ivan Santamaria. They've both got the move done on the Aston Martin there. But what on earth happened there to Tamas? I think he's just dropped it on the power, trying to get the best exit possible out of turn 1, as there's Zach Miles getting past his teammate Gregory there. Gregory now starting to fall down like a stone, like I said he would. And he's just falling down through the order, so could even fall out of the points at this rate. We'll have to wait and see. But for Dehart and Keanu Lieto, they've only got Wilson Hall to look out for now. But Danny Coe, who of course started at the back of the field, now is in with a really good chance of maybe even getting a podium here if he's able to catch up to this top 3. But we'll have to wait and see if he's able to. Very deep into the castle section there for Danny Coe, nearly taking off his front right-hand tyre. But I'm very, very surprised no safety car was called out for that one. We got one for just Drax losing his front wing. But when we have a big crash like that, and both McLarens being out, no safety car decided to be called. So I think the race direction around here, they might have had a few beers, because they've not really made their decisions with a straight head. But Keanu Lieto now all over the back of Dehart as we head down into turn 1 once more. And of course, this is now starting to become crunch time between these two. They need to start making the moves and try to put away from one another. But of course, lap 26 is when it's all going to come down to. Really, you want to be behind for that lap. But here we go then. Keanu to the inside line. They're still side by side by the time they nearly reach the braking zone. Dehart moved out slightly there. Amos Lorito goes up into 4th place and gets past Danny Coe. Zach Miles down into 6th place as well. Ivan Santamaria under some pressure from Drax, who's actually got into the wall, I think, there as well on the exit of turn 1. With the little bit of the barrier that's sticking out, which I think is a very clumsy corner exit to have. And he might have picked up some front wing damage. No, he has not. He's still got his front wing, but now drops behind Quinton Dupuis as well. He's not really had the best afternoon of things as Drax, as I think he actually has got a bit of front wing damage by the way his car is acting. So that's now 3 front wings he has broken in the space of 20 laps.
Yeah, I'm really wondering who's going to win this race. Look at Keanu Lieto there. He's still trying to cooperate with Dea and potentially Wilson Hall as well. But Amos has managed to nearly close the gap to within a second. And as I say that, it's almost going to under 1.0 seconds there, with Danny Coe in tow and several other drivers trying to take the benefit of that big tow as well, closing up the gap to the top 3. And that's something, of course, that Amos Lorito would really like. He would get his 3rd podium in a row as well. 3rd in Saudi Arabia, 2nd in Imola, and potentially a win here. That would complete his podium streak for sure. Danny Coe, of course, got a brilliant story from somewhere last in the field up to P5 already. Something Quinton Dupuis unfortunately can't say so far, as he retired in the pit lane, tried to do the same challenge. Not yet very successful so far, but there's still 6 laps to go, with Luca Wolsto dropping off further and further, no longer within DRS range. Let's see what the top 3 is going to do here. They're all very close together, probably going to re-overtake one another as Dea Demechoglu moves on the inside. Wilson, he actually, I believe, tapped Keanu Lieto there. Now they're still side by side, and this is something they definitely do not want to happen here. Dea Demechoglu still on the inside of Keanu Lieto. Wilson Hall tucking in behind, safe and sound. Amos Lorito is there. Yellow flag as Drax retires in the pit lane. For a moment I thought the safety car was going to get called out there, but Keanu Lieto now re-overtaken. But Dea Demechoglu, they come together again, and they nearly plow one another into the wall. They are no longer cooperating, I believe, and they tap once more. This is just is waiting for a disaster. I see there's some carbon flying off one driver's front wing as that's Stefano Ramazio missing his braking point, going out of turn 3. I wonder whose front wing got damaged there. That was actually not Stefano Ramazzi, that was Candy King. Apologies, going into turn 3 with a very bad mood, I believe, right now. But I'm trying to figure out who's got front wing damage.
Gregory.
Max? Is it Gregory?
No, it's Zach Miles.
Zach Miles. Oh, dearie me.
Gregory into the wall!
Oh no. What's going on? And there it is.
Into the castle section. It all just bunched up and Gregory's gone straight on into the wall. But there was surely a crash bound to happen. It was just Wilson Hall acting like a battering ram to Keanu Lieto. 2 times in 3 corners. He smashed into the back of the Red Bull in front. But now we surely are going to see at least a 5-lap dash with the soft compounded tyres. Sorry, not 5. That would probably be 3 laps when we get back underway. With the soft compounded tyres, and that will throw everything up into the air.
Maybe literally.
That was just a mental few corners there. Amos Lirito is actually trying to slow down the field here slightly to try really build a gap to his teammate in front. But Zach Miles has passed a pair of Amos Lirito and Danico there. No idea what's happened.
He's not getting a penalty for that. I've seen this before, actually. I'm not sure where I saw it, but apparently if you overtake somebody then go into the pit lane, it will stop counting down the timer where you have to give back the position.
Well, then that's a very smart strategic decision there.
This is, well, I'm not sure if it's glitching the system or trying to exploit
he's got held up anyway.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, he got that front wing damage anyway, so
that's
there was
true.
no real point for him doing that.
So he didn't gain anything by it. I'm not sure if there's anything in the rules about that or whether it's a recent discovery from the F1 community. But it's definitely a possibility, and I hope it doesn't get exploited too often because technically it's very much illegal to do so. But fortunately for the other drivers, Zach has gained nothing by it. He finds himself in 9th right now, and the field has been shaken up drastically behind the top 3. Danico still in 4th, but Polkis is up to P5 all of a sudden. Amos Lorito, thanks to the double stack, is a bit further away from the podium again, with P6 right there. Ronan Alfredson has been driving in the back of the field most of the race, finds himself in 7th at the moment. Riley McKay has clawed back a little bit in P8, then Zach of course in 9th, Ivan Santamaria in P10. Then Quinton Dupuis, who's been pretty invisible this race so far, in 11th. Let's see if he can storm into the top 10. Luca Walls, though, might be in a shot for some points now that he's been able to reconnect to the group. Candy King then in 13th, and Stefano Ramazio just exiting out of turn 2, trying to get back to the group, hopefully in time. I'm not sure how long the safety car is going to last, but there's few laps remaining. I think it will stay out for another lap if Stefano is lucky. But how much luck is it? Because he's still in 14th. And that is quite far away from the points, relatively speaking. With 5 drivers out in the span of several laps. Well, it's suddenly heated up big time. Because the race at the start, Max, was quite safe. Quite without incidents. And then after Jeremy's crash into the castle section, things just went ham.
Yeah, it's like it was a chain reaction there to really set everything off and really unleash the carnage that we was expecting early on in this race. So, I mean, props to the drivers for getting this long before really starting for the crash fest to begin. But for Stefano, the safety car will stay out latest lap 24. The end of lap 24, of course, the safety car has to peel in before and give us 2 laps of racing on this game. It probably will be able to catch up, you would think, because he is now just down that main straight, but I think he's going quite slowly down that main straight, actually. I don't know. It looked like he was going slow. That could have just been the mini-map playing a few tricks on me, but Candy King into the pits for an extra set of softs. That could be a smart move there from the Ferrari driver, because of course that means he's going to have at least 2 or 3% less wear, and of course already being down at the back, he's already somewhat in a no-risk situation by doing that. But he's going very slow out the pit lane.
He's letting his teammate pass.
He's let Stefano through.
Yep.
So obviously he knows Stefano's quicker, and he's like, you know what, mate, go on through, and I'll just sit behind and pick up the scraps after you somewhat act like what Wilson Hall was, a battering ram or just a ram to get him through the field. And Candy King maybe just trying to get at least a point here by trying to follow his teammate through and pick off each driver one by one after his teammate gets by him.
Yeah, this is interesting because he's on the faster tires. Anyway, a question from Luigi Conti in the chat. No penalty for Zach? No, because Zach was able to get into the pit lane before the countdown timer could give him a penalty for overtaking cars under safety car conditions. Now, whether that's an exploit or not, I will leave up to the stewards if the incident gets reported at all. I'm not sure it will be if anybody else is caught up on it. But we'll find out what will happen with that interesting incident a few laps earlier. Anyway, I'd say the safety car is going to come in at the end of this lap, which means we'll have 3 laps of racing remaining, and I'd say that is going to be absolute carnage if the other laps haven't already proven so. Let's see what happens there. Dimajoglu again leading this field. Now, hopefully, for his own sake, he'll be able to keep that lead. But Keanu and Wilson and several others are very hungry to take the victory. I say maybe Danny might be the hungriest of them all, because then he will finally have completed his last to first challenge. Something I think he hasn't really ever told us his reasoning for doing this strategy. But I'd say he will definitely see this as the crown on his work. But let's find out with these 3 remaining laps as he tries to get as much heat as he can into his tires. It's Dea bunching up the field. He's not gone yet. He's actually slowing down. And there he goes. Up to speed he goes. But Keanu is very much awake. He's still very close to the Haas there. There's going to be 1 lap of DRS from the top of my head. But Keanu doesn't go for the move yet. However, it is Amos Lorito who does go for the move. But he nearly collides with Polkis there. Has to yield out of that position. But he doesn't actually. He's still going side by side with the Alfa Romeo as he moves up into P5. I saw somebody in the chat saying he's still got front wing damage, as I think I see Zach Miles going side by side. Yes, there he is with one of the Aston Martins as Amos Lorita tries to defend as much as he can from Polkis. Is he going to keep the position? That's the big question. Yes, he is. Now Polkis finds himself under threat from Roland Alfredson. Just behind there, Zach Miles has overtaken Quinton Dupuis for P8, who finds himself under threat from cars from behind as well. Everybody is trying to gain as many positions as possible on these quick soft tires in this long train. Amos Lorita now with a big gap to the top 4, so podium is starting to fly further and further away from him. Stefano Romazio and Riley Mackay fighting for position before entering the castle section. It's wise to do it there, actually, instead of within that castle section. We've seen plenty of incidents here tonight. Riley Mackay nearly losing the car there. He's on the verge of entering the top 10. It's just Luca Wolstow that's ahead of him. Luca, though, back in the top 10, as he should be, as he tries to gain many more positions. But there's only, well, just over 2 laps to go. Let's see how this will all play out.
Yeah, certainly. Let's have a look. And it's going to have to be qualifying lap after qualifying lap from these drivers on these last 2 laps. 2 qualifying laps in quick succession, which will be very, very tricky to do, especially in a race trim scenario. So here we are then, Keanu Lieto behind Dehar. He's moved out from the slipstream. Pulkis has got past Amos Lorito, and here comes Roland Alfredson as well on the Red Bull driver. Is he going to go for the move? No, he is not. And Amos having to sit behind the Alfa Romeo as well. So I think we're going to have the top 4 battling for the lead. That final battle from 5th place downwards to see who can pick up at least 10 points in this Grand Prix. So for Pulkis, after having that spin early on and being down at the field for quite some, at the bottom of the field for quite some time, he certainly can pick up a good result here this evening. We'll just have to wait and see how it plays out. But of course, if these top 4 bottleneck and all just somewhat slow each other down by braking earlier than one another, that could really bring Pulkis back into this one. You can see he's 1.2 seconds behind. All he needs is through this castle section. Dehar brake a little bit earlier, then Keanu. It's a chain reaction effect to then bring Pulkis, somewhat pull him into play. So we'll just have to wait and see as he now heads through the castle section. Excuse my pun there, Frostbreath. As we now head into turns 12, 13 and 14 for what could be the final, the penultimate time here, and what could be the final time we see Dehar leading here. We'll just have to wait and see. But Pulkis, now within that DRS, he certainly has been pulled into play now. But we have to wait and see. So Dehar and Keanu heading down this main straight now. Frost, being that you're the main commentator here, take us away here for this final lap at Tier 3.
I definitely will, and hopefully they will not take one another out as we approach this main straight for the second to last time. Keanu Liatou moving out of the slipstream, then moving to the other side of the Haas of Dea Dimichoglu. DRS is now enabled. This is crucial. Keanu has to be behind on this part of the track if he wants to benefit from the DRS. Dea knows this, but he's got more battery than Keanu has. So who's going to come out best? It's just under 1.5 minutes, and then we shall know. There goes Keanu Liatou. He's wasting no time to get past. Into the lead he goes. This might spell trouble for him, but I think he didn't really have much of a choice. Otherwise, would have both have to slow down, allowing Wilson Hall to get past. But now Keanu Liatou is very much vulnerable to lose the lead from Dea Dimichoglu. So he'll have to push like mad to get away from Dea as much as he can. But with half a battery compared to Dea's 3/4 filled one, is going to be a challenge and a half. So the top 4 still within 1 second of one another. Danny Coe then is patiently waiting behind. He's probably hoping for a big incident to happen because he's starting to lose touch with the top 3 right now. Polkis can't seem to pull it together to try and close that gap. Now I accidentally made that pun as well. Amos Dorito is still lurking behind with his front wing damage, doing a brilliant job trying to push as hard as he can with a car that's pretty much sick at this end of the race. Wilson Hall is now getting very close to Dea Dimichoglu. It looks like Dimichoglu might have lost a little bit of pace, but he's still got the battery to help him out on the final stretch of this track. Let's see what he can pull off. It's going to be a long shot for him to retake the lead of this race. Keanu knows that Dea is going to close the gap ASAP, and there they are then, all within half a second of one another. Luca Walsh now overtaking Zach Miles for P8, but this is the battle we want to watch all the way to the line. It's going to be incredibly tight, but Dea still does it somehow and wins 3 races in a row, extending his lead again. There goes 3 cars almost nearly side by side over the line as Amos still picks up P5 because of his front wing. He's got more straight line speed, so that was a benefit for him. But there we go, all of them across the line already. Brilliant race by everyone there, still alive. And Dea Dimichoglu, 3 in a row. The man appears to be unbeatable this season. Brilliant job.
Wow, Deha, how have you pulled that one off? For Keanu Liatou, though, it is heartbreak at the line, pretty much. It was Valtteri Bottas on Lance Stroll S.
Yes.
And Deha manages to pick up his 3rd win of the season. And for Keanu Liatou, he will be kicking himself with that. He was sort of forced into the move there and didn't have as much battery as Deha. And that's really what gave Deha that race victory, was just that battery advantage down that main straight. And he was just able to pull in the Red Bull in front at a rate of knots. Well done to Wilson Hall at 3rd for getting his 3rd podium of the season. He's 3rd in a row as well. And Danny Coe trying that last at first, not able to pull it off and finishing in 4th. But I reckon he'll still be happy with that one, with how chaotic that race was. But Deha, 3 in a row now. He's extending his lead at the top of the championship once again. And he really is, as we're about to head into the halfway stage of the season, the man who is favourite to win this championship here.
Yeah, definitely safe to say that he's the favourite indeed. So other drivers, Danny Coe is my driver of the day, to be honest, from 19th to 4th and within a shot of the podium. Couldn't last it until the end, unfortunately. Hadn't got the pace to stay with the top 3 in the last lap where it counted most. We'll see Polkis in P6. He'll be satisfied. Rodert Alfredson and Quinton Dupuis, both Aston Martins, had a good race from 14th and 18th to 7th and 8th. Well done to them. Zach Miles will be disappointed with only 9th. Stefano Ramazio still recovered to P10, so well done to him. Riley Mackay in 11th. Kenny King in P12. Ivan Santamaria 13th. And Luca Walstow, the last of the finishers, only 14th, and that is going to hurt his battle for 2nd. A driver who will be reporting for duty for that for the fight for 2nd place will be the other Red Bull driver, Keanu Liatou, because after this brilliant race, his 1st podium of the season, so I think it will be a bit of a double-edged sword for him. He's going to be happy one way because this is his 1st podium. He might be disappointed the other way because he just missed out on the race win. But let's find out and see if they are up for an interview. Let's actually try and find if they're up for that one. Let me type in the Discord real quick. Top 3 up for an interview, question mark. Let's see. I know that Dea usually doesn't really want to give an interview because he isn't very comfortable with speaking English. So let's hope one of the other 2 will be willing to give us a bit of an insight in this well, to be fair, very chaotic race. Perhaps the most chaotic of the season in Tier 3 so far.
Yeah, it'll be nice to see if someone can just share a few words on what has happened there. But yeah, a very entertaining race there from these drivers, and for Dayhart, another well-deserved victory. Really played that race to perfection. But yeah, it's going to be exciting for the rest of the season for you here, Frost. I don't know if I'll be back at least at one point in this season, but if not, you've still got a brilliant season on your hands, even if Dayhart is so far out in front. Just the racing is so close. And still, we got the likes of, if I can bring up my standings, we've still got. I mean, you're going to another street circuit next week in Canada, so that could still be another eventful one. Then, of course, we head to Monza, and then you end the season off at Brazil, which always provides brilliant racing. And it's going to be just an entertaining end to this season. Could Dayhar's lead be slashed in half, and could someone else like Wilson Hall or maybe even Keanu Liato now mount a championship challenge? We don't know. We don't know what can happen for the rest of the season, but surely will be entertaining to see. And can Dayhar try and keep his 100% podium record heading into Canada and for the rest of the season?
Yeah, and well, Wilson Holly didn't finish the first race, but from all the races he did finish, he finished on the podium. So he's a very strong driver as well. Luca Wolster, of course, very unlucky with that incident by the last few laps of the race. He will now slowly see that second position fade away, but there's still more than half of the seasons to go, as you say, rightfully so. Unfortunately, I haven't been able to pull anyone from the top 3 into the waiting for interview voice channel, which is a pity. Because I would have really liked to hear from any of the drivers to see how they thought of this race, because they'll probably agree with us that it was very chaotic. We saw Danico saying in the chat that he's very grateful for the carnage because he managed to get from last to 4th, which of course is very commendable considering this race was absolute mayhem. Luca Wolstow very disappointed in the Discord. Let's put it at that. There will probably be plenty of reports for all of these things happening. Amos Orito was being left in the dark by who touched him from behind. So there will be plenty of things for the drivers to talk about. Probably plenty of us for us commentators to talk about before the race next week to see what the outcome is of all of these reports, potentially. Anyway, that will conclude this stream, I'd say, for real this time. Thank you so much for watching this quite epic race through Azerbaijan, as probably expected anyway in this track. Very good racing provided here as always. Thank you so much, Max, for joining me here in Tier 3. I hope it was a pleasure, but it probably was for you, wasn't it?
Yeah, it certainly was. Thank you for having me here, Frost. It has been a pleasure, and hopefully for Tier 3, an amazing season left to come.
I am 100% certain of it. Let's hope next week Epic will be back up to full health or healthy enough to commentate here in Tier 3. Otherwise, who knows who will be in the seat next to me. Whatever happens, have a great morning, afternoon, evening, wherever you are. Next week, Canada, same time, same place. Until then, goodbye.